I put on some headphones.
Well, that's good.
So I don't get the echo. I need to shut my door. All right. I will share to the space books. Share to the world. We're going to be talking about Tom doesn't know. If I'm being serious.
Wait, talking about what?
Mm-hmm. That's right, baby. That's right.
Oh, man.
Let's see. Mm-hmm. Cool. Close out anything else that doesn't need to be there. Well, folks, I'll let Tom type a bit.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good.
No. You already started with well, folks.
Well, I can give him another well, folks.
No, there's only one well, folks a night.
We clearly have just done 5 well, folks, so.
Well, no. Now it's going to be 6 well, folks.
That could have been 6.
Yes.
But we're at 6, so here comes 7. Well, folks, this is the Commander Shipp and Major Tom show. And I enjoyed being off last week, let me tell you.
Very good.
It was nice to just not have to. I love you all, but it was nice to not have to worry about the show for a week. So I don't want to say worry. Not have to plan.
You don't worry.
I mean, yeah, worry. The word is just not the right word. It's like there is energy that goes into the show. So what you all see produced before you, even though sometimes it might be running up to the last minute, or maybe like reading stuff throughout the week, trying to read as many articles as possible. Also, thank you, hosts, for following us. Was it 00312? Appreciate that. Always love a new follower. Yeah, we are broadcasting on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, so we always appreciate whichever platform you're watching us on, giving us a subscribe there, and liking this video so people can see it. And or if you have some extra time and want to share it, we love that too. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking some sad news. Get for our quick hits, some news we weren't able to talk about from the past this past week and weekend, and then we got to talk Shang-Chi. Matrix Resurrections is teasing us. I'm usually very aggressive toward teasers of teaser trailers, because it's like there's a teaser trailer, there's a story trailer, and there might be other ads and TV spots. So to do a short snippet of a teaser trailer just irritates the hell out of me. And then The Matrix does it, and I can't shut up talking about it.
It's the best save the date that you've ever gotten.
You know what? It is. It's on. It's great. Tom, how have you been since I was away?
I've been doing okay. Just yeah. I've actually. So, truth be told, I haven't seen Shang-Chi this last weekend because I've been saving myself for Dune, and I've been feeling a lot of FOMO about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely. I'm glad to be joined by one of our Nerd Union alumni, Songdae Chen. It's gonna be really good discussion. I hope and just give them more of the floor to just honestly. Hopefully, we can just start that with, and I'll just I'll get my few critiques out of the way, and then let's get into the impact and good stuff. So, but yeah, Tom, definitely whenever you've watched it and want to jump back in on it, we'll do that.
Sure thing.
All right. Normally we would start right with quick hits, but we are going to tackle some sad news about a actor that's near and dear to my heart, Michael K. Williams, who passed away on Monday at the age of 54. was found in his Brooklyn apartment, and the love from Hollywood has been pouring in since yesterday. Or I think I saw it right before I got on my flight home yesterday, so kind of had to sit on a plane with that. Um, not to put my woes on that, but it's just kind of if you don't know, he played on The Wire and most recently
Hmm.
with Lovecraft Country, and he's played many other roles. For folks that haven't seen those heavier roles, maybe seen him as a teacher on Community. But he's been fairly solid. I don't want to say solid, but I mean like fairly active. He hasn't really had ever since The Wire. He's never really had a lull. Um, and I
Yeah.
probably, unfortunately, I wish he had had more lead roles. He's usually been very solid in the supporting actor space. And the most predictions for the Emmys right now have him taking Best Supporting Actor for Lovecraft Country. But yeah, Tom, would you? Yeah, I'll let you.
I first discovered him as Chalky White, and then learned about him on The Wire. And yeah, he is fantastic. Anything that he's been in, I've been, oh, he's in this, awesome. And I've always looked for stuff that he's in because he always brings it.
Yeah. I do want to read something that Wendell Pierce, one of his co-stars on The Wire, fantastic actor in his own right, but they were very close. They met on the set of The Wire, became very close friends after that point. Also knew a lot about Williams' drug issues and have worked together through a lot of that. So he said, and I'll quote, and it's a nice. I'm not gonna read the entire thing. Everyone should go check it out on Twitter because actually, there's a really he just goes on and on. It's a really great Twitter tribute to Michael K. Williams, and I'm sure he'll probably come out and do some video as well. But he says, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. His name was Michael K. Williams. He shared with me his secret fears, then stepped out into his acting with true courage, acting in the face of fear, not in the absence of it. It took me years to learn what Michael had in abundance. The Wire brought us together and immortalized Omar and Bunk in that scene on a park bench. But for us, we aimed to take that moment in time together and say something about black men, our struggle with ourselves internally and each other. For me and Mike, we had nothing but respect. But again, that's just a small snippet of what Pierce wrote for him because he really goes in and pens something really amazing here. So definitely recommend everyone go check it out.
Yep.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be having some good news when the Emmys come up here, barely in 2 weeks. Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, it'll be bittersweet if he does get it.
Yeah. All right. But we can transition not just into the quick hits as far as news, but into some fantastic things that have happened over the weekend. We've reported about Shang-Chi and Marvel and Disney, and some friction has happened there between shareholders, Sim and Yu. Some misunderstanding, some accurately concerned about how the box office performance of this movie was going to do. It's particularly with the Labor Day weekend and the pandemic. If you were worried, you do not need to worry anymore. Shang-Chi has destroyed the box office record. And I don't.
Aww.
Sorry. I know, folks. We're still having a sizing issue, so that is not.
Phrasing.
Sorry. We'll work on that. But made 94.6 million over the 4-day weekend, which is the biggest for a Labor Day weekend, particularly, and beats Rob Zombie's Halloween remake from 2007, which came in at 30 million. Since we've been in the pandemic, it is now the second highest pandemic gross, just missing Black Widow's mark of 81 million. Obviously, Black Widow didn't have a fourth day to work with when it released. Ergo, that's just off of its 3-day total. But yeah, it whooped a lot of movies this year. And even if, I mean, that's a solid weekend.
Regardless.
If you take off what they made today, was 18 additional million on Monday, it still would have been a very solid opening. So yeah,
it is fantastic. I'm glad to hear it did, because definitely didn't want to have. I wanted this to be like Black Panther, just ending the conversation about people of color being in lead roles.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what. Hold up, maybe I can get the chat back. There we go. All right. Let's see. Next step, because so actually, Shang-Chi has inspired Sony, which I don't know is necessarily a great thing, but it has inspired Sony to push the opening of Venom 2 from October 15th to October 1st. Tom, I just questioned if anyone's going to watch this CGI monstrosity.
I don't know. Like even with Jai Courtney doing his best acting, I think that it really wasn't a compelling film. I mean, their relationship seemed to be kind of interesting, but everything outside of that just seemed to be like, roll the dice and like pick from 3 columns of what action movie tropes you can have in there, and that's what they did.
Yeah. It also just doesn't look good. No. Am I crazy to say like I don't want to see CGI? It's a downscale of the Green Lantern problem, where like the suit was like, why is that CGI? Why did you need to do that? But clearly you could still see it, and it kind of got messy there towards the end with the final monster fight. Whereas this is kind of the same. Once the symbiotes really start fighting each other, you just can't really tell what's going on anymore. Because like when Venom and Riot fought in the first one, I'm like, this is boring. I do not care what's going on right now.
Well, that and they just look so otherworldly anyway, and they fell into that thing of making everything so shiny and goopy that it just there was no invested stakes in my mind as to who would win at that point. Mm-hmm. I only hope they both die.
But the one bright spot, that's more distance from Dune. So if that helps Dune do better at the box office, I will take that. Heck, if Dune wants to move up and take October 15th and create more space between itself and things coming out in the fall, like the Eternals and stuff like that, or Top Gun, do it.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have some more. This is one we didn't get to talk about last week because we were out. But Candyman came out October 27th. I highly recommend you go see it if you're able to in a safe way. And it made some black cinematic history because Nia DaCosta became the first black woman to helm a #1 movie, even if you take pandemic numbers into account. So what does that mean? 22.3 million. It's not a lot of money. And I assume over its run, it will probably make back its budget and so on and so forth, which again, that's where the pandemic piece comes in, because it's like, can you continue to like have some legs after the first release? Which we'll talk about more of that when we get to Shang-Chi as well. But the 2 debut #1 is still an accomplishment. It doesn't matter if it's pandemic or a normal year. If you can win a weekend, that is still a significant milestone. So big shout out to the 32-year-old Nia DaCosta. Holy crap.
Wow, what am I doing with my life?
Yep. Gosh. Yeah, I don't want to think about it. We're going to move on to castings and announcements. The wonderful Joel Edgerton being joined by Sigourney Weaver on Paul Schrader's next project called Master Gardener. Now, you probably have been seeing ads on your social media accounts and on YouTube and different things like that for The Card Counter, starring Oscar Isaac, Paul Dano, which is going to premiere at the Venice Film Festival this week. And wouldn't be surprised if we see someone pick it up and put it on a streaming site or get a film release for that sometime next year. But they're both of them are attached to lead in Master Gardener. It's going to be a crime thriller that Schrader has written himself. It's going to be his original screenplay, and follows Egerton, who's the horticulturist, tending the grounds of a beautiful estate and pandering to his employee, the wealthy Sigourney Weaver. Hold up. I hadn't read that last sentence. Good Lord. When she demands that he take on her wayward and troubled great niece, it unlocks dark secrets from a buried, violent past.
Okay.
What is that? I don't know. What's that gonna be about? All right.
That's going to be emotional.
What? My emotions. My emotions. We have a release date for Jon Stewart's next project that will be coming out on Apple TV Plus. The Problem with Jon Stewart. It will be a new show focused on current affairs with episodes every other week. Hey, we know some shows that do every other week on this platform. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good model.
So he's ripping you off.
He's ripping us up. He's ripping us up.
Yeah.
I don't think he can get royalties based on the release schedule. All right. But I'm excited to see him back. I think we've needed some. Well, if it's just caveat. If it's just Daily Show remixed, I don't think that's what we need right now.
No.
But we'll see what that actually means when the show debuts.
I'm hoping it's going to be something closer to like Jordan Klepper's Fingers of Pulse.
Yeah.
And maybe still a dash like Last Week Tonight. But I think he might do more investigative stuff.
Yeah. So the Marvels, we did not know that Lashana Lynch was gonna be in it. And if you've watched WandaVision, you definitely know why we weren't expecting her to be in it. But a eagle-eyed Twitter user this was posted on their Instagram, and it's got Tiana Paris and Nia DaCosta at lunch with Lashana Lynch in London. That's interesting. What do you think?
Maybe
Tom?
they're just hanging out for lunch, right? You know, hey, Marvel friends, let's have lunch. Much like, when Chris Evans used to tweet Avengers Assemble and then they show up at a nightclub somewhere.
But are they? Well, I guess black women hanging out, sisterhood. That could be okay.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Right.
Why does it have to be some movie conspiracy? Why can't people just be friends, Kenny?
Why can't it be both?
I mean, if you're greedy, sure.
All right. During the pandemic, DC did the DC fandom event. I don't know how to say it. Shit. Last year during the pandemic in 2020. But it's going to repeat again for 2021 on October 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So if we're here on Central Time, so it's 12. That'll be 12 noon for us. You'll be able to watch it on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter on the official Warner Brothers accounts. And we are confirmed to get new trailers from the following DC movies. So The Batman, and if you remember last year's DC fandoms when we got the first trailer drop for The Batman, so this will hopefully be a story trailer leading us into next year. Clips from DC's League of Super Pets. Okay, all right. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, as well as a first look at Black Adam, and this is probably the biggest one, The Flash, which is the Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, and Ben Affleck Flashpoint movie.
That's still happening.
Yeah, that's hey. On the TV front, if you liked Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, remember that we reported long back that he's getting his own TV series, and we will get a look at that along with updates on new seasons for Batwoman, The Flash, Superman and Lois, and Sweet Tooth, which also I have not been able to watch, but I've continued to hear that it's fantastic.
Yes, very different from the usual fare, but yes, it's delightful.
And some more things on like Harley Quinn season 2, a Aquaman King of Atlantis animated movie, and a new show, Batman Caped Crusader, which I'm curious to see what the setting of that's going to be like. Tom, how do you feel about airplanes that go missing in TV shows and people come back with mysterious powers?
Uh, I think that's an interesting premise for a TV show.
It's been done to death.
Yeah.
I swear to God, if one more group of people just goes missing and then they come back, like the 4400, or I
Blip.
can't remember all this. I can't remember all of it.
Marvel Blip.
Marvel Blip. I didn't think about it that way. I already didn't like the Blip anymore as it was, Tom. Well,
but at least the 4400 was, I think, a decent show. I think.
Yeah,
so.
No, I'd agree with you on that. I like the 4400. So Manifest, after its third season got canceled by NBC, it debuted on Netflix during the pandemic and was one of the most popular shows on Netflix for a solid year. So Netflix said, well, you don't want this? Yeah, well, we'll pick it up. So they're not picking it up for multiple seasons. It will just be one final fourth season. But yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, get Manifest, but no Altered Carbon season 3. I see how it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That and gosh, well, no, I've always been bitter that Netflix never picked up Stargate Universe for its final season.
Man,
for just one season to close that out.
I mean, I think if it had happened now, they probably would have. But
yes.
At the time, Netflix wasn't taking that kind of risk. They,
no.
Yeah. Good point though, man. That show, I'm gonna get distracted.
So good, and then they rip it right from under us.
Dang it, Tom!
I'm sorry. I'm just a ray of sunshine today.
Yeah, you are. You're something. So Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans himself will be back for a Apple TV movie from Dexter Fletcher. So he directed Rocket Man with I was about to say Joel Edgerton, but wait, the kid from the Kingsman.
Yeah, he plays Eggsy.
Yeah, he plays Eggsy, but that's not his name.
No, I'll look it up for you.
Thank you. He also finished Bohemian Rhapsody, so he was not the original director for Bohemian Rhapsody, but he ended up finishing that. But it will be some kind of rom-com titled Ghosted, will debut on Apple TV. So the script is by Paul Wernick, Rhett Reese. So they were writers on the Deadpool movies and Zombieland, and most recently scripted the movie Escape from Spiderhead. I've not been able to watch that. That sounds wild.
Yes. By the way, it's Taron Egerton.
Taron Egerton. I got stuck on the J. So I was like, it's not. And I just said Joel Egerton earlier in the show.
Yep.
So there was just no way I was going to be able to. If I'd even had it in the notes, I probably still would have been like, is it Taron? Is it Taron Egerton? Taron Bell told us that's Taron Egerton. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So if you've ever played the game Sleeping Dogs, it's a really fun. I forget which country it's set in, but it almost feels like a Hong Kong action movie. It's a fantastic game. If you like the Yakuza games, not quite RPG focused like that, but if you like that kind of high fast action, Sleeping Dogs is definitely for you. Made by Rockstar. Donnie Yen has been attached to the idea of like this live action for a while, and he gave a little bit of an update. Quote in an interview with Collider that I'm still hopeful. I mean, every day to tell me it's going to happen, and I'm co-producing and collaborating with producers Neil Moritz and Toby Asher with their company. Currently talking with a couple of big platforms, and they tell me every single day it's going to happen. So we'll see. Like I said, I believe in destiny. So if it's going to happen, hopefully it will happen the first half of next year. But nothing in that really tells us if there's a script finalized. Company that's picked it up outside of the production company, like you're going to need a distributor for that. So
yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of steps left before they can start getting greenlit.
Cool. All right, and then lastly on castings and announcements, last Wednesday, Letitia Wright had gotten injured on the Black Panther 2, the Black Panther Wakanda Forever set, but apparently the injuries were very minor and didn't do anything to affect the shooting schedule. So, really excited to hear that she's okay. Got checked out at the local hospital and was able to get back to work. I think at the end of the last week or started this week. So it's really good to hear. Apparently, it was an action scene at late at night down in Atlanta. So, sorry, no, I apologize. Boston. Sorry, they are filming some scenes in Atlanta, but yeah, that scene was being shot in Boston.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that, or I'm curious to see if they're going to be, if it's on site in Boston or just a studio in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell is Black Panther doing in Boston?
Well, I mean, they're just using the city for like shots. It's like that one time that we said Boston looks like scenes from Naboo. It doesn't. I was just screwing with Zach Brass, a mutual friend of ours. All right, so we're moving on to our major stories. And Tom, do you think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. should be canon?
Sure, why not? I mean, they bent over backwards to shoehorn what was it, Winter Soldier plot points into them.
That's true. Now the Bill Paxton Hydra reveal, and if I just ruin that for people, goodness, if you haven't watched, like, you're late. Sorry. But I actually liked that quite a bit. I thought that was pretty sweet. Technically, with the multiverse, there's multiple ways for this to be for him to be brought back.
Mm-hmm. Preferably as a zombie.
Zombies! Yeah, look at zombies tomorrow. It's gonna be awesome. Yep. But Clark Clegg got to talk on Marvel Movie Minute to talk about all the things Coulson that he's pulling for to be resolved, because there's, again, room for all sorts of things with this new continuity. And I'll quote Greg directly. I've seen places where people felt like S.H.I.E.L.D. or something had been decanonized by stuff that happened in WandaVision in ways I couldn't quite even follow, and I'm pretty adept at this stuff. And he says, Feige is so classy to the fans. I just think that's why Marvel has done something so special. Is their number one priority is taking care of fans. I read this comment the other day where someone said that about did this diminish Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And Feige said, I think we were really underestimating how powerful and passionate fans of that show and the Netflix shows are and were. And I would never underestimate them or the possibility of those characters, because I really want to see really want to see Charlie Cox. And I really want to see people who love those shows and want to see it all get crossed over as much as it could, because I think that's what the Marvel fans want. No, that was a bit of a mouthful. I apologize. Folks. And that's a nice sentiment, but
that's not saying anything.
Yeah. Feige, come on, Cap.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks, if you got confused, I apologize, because I did kind of go just start reading. So that was Greg also relating an interview from Kevin Feige. Yeah. I just want to hear Kevin Feige say it's canon. Those characters are going to be brought in. That's all you need to say. But
actually, he doesn't even need to. Well, for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he can just say it's canon, but they're never coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
we're not getting another. Yeah. Well, and I know there probably is an era mystery thing there too. Like, he doesn't want to, if he is going to use them, doesn't want to let that cat out of the bag.
Sure.
But you could. Well, that's the. I guess I have to walk back what I said, because if he says they're canon, then we're going to assume they're going to show up and or not be recast. So, you know what? Kevin Feige might be in a tough spot. It's like, even if he wants to use them, if he tells folks, yeah, they are totally part of the MCU, he realistically could, because he does, he really wants to keep things tight to the chest. Yeah. So, sorry, I guess I apologize. I'll take some of that back. Because I'm trying to remember. Yeah, he really wants to keep as many details hidden as possible. So, yeah, it makes sense he wouldn't let. That's too big of a piece that would topple the whole house of cards. Yeah.
Agreed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tom, do you want stealth suit? Aqua bro.
Yes, the Bro King has returned, and he's wearing the all black suit that he read in GQ is high fashion. So
I know we're picking on it, but I kind of like
it's not bad though. My favorite meme so
it.
far is it shows that picture and then it shows what's Kat Dennings' character
Oh, Darcy.
Darcy saying, "Oh, they recast Batman." So
That's pretty good.
yeah,
That's pretty good. Uh, yeah. So he posted us on Instagram saying second round, new suit, more action. There was the original suit from the first Aquaman, so he's not gotten rid of his original kingly suit at all. So that will still feature in the movie. So this could just be something that's earlier in the movie, and then he goes back to the original suit, which the
when he's on his
scales.
Black Ops mission.
Black Ops mission. Maybe him and Black Manta get into a fight, something like that.
Him and his seals, which are actual seals.
Seals, real seals. Yeah, but when you think about just like yellow spandex, green tights, and stuff like that, but the ribbed or kind of like scales on it, especially and I know I don't have a picture of the other suit on here, but you always kind of imagine like, is Aquaman gonna look ridiculous in this yellow green color scheme? But I really want to give the costume designers a lot of props for the first movie. That actually looked really good.
It's not yellow and green. It's gold and emerald.
Gold and emerald.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And that one is also scaled. It does have fish scales on it.
Yeah, this one, yeah. So I appreciate that. It was an effect that just really made it look great. And I think it works in the universe. So that we may not like a lot parts of Aquaman. So like the movie's kind of like, okay. But hey, I'll give the costume design it's good.
So I do have to tease second round, new suit, more action, because what was missing from the last one was more action. It was just riddled with thoughtful dialogue instead of action. I'm so glad that they've made that improvement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So before we move on, I'm going to check in with our esteemed guest real quick. Just give me 1 second. Dun, 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 dun. Tap at a tap, tap, tap.
Tappity tap. I should tap too.
You're going to drown out my taps?
Yes, and synchronized tapping.
Synchronized tapping. For the folks watching the podcast, they'll get this edited out. All right. I'll move to the next. Or I guess no. This is yeah, we got 2 more news segments before we get to our big topics. So this one switches over into the world of Broadway, but it's still related to our fields because people that are coming out in support were from different actors and actresses from across the board. So long story short, and what I'm actually going to focus on more is ways that you can support the organizers. So I'm actually not going to spend a lot of time on Karen McIntosh's comments. But suffice it to say, this organizer on Broadway, particularly in regards to casting transgender performers in musicals, talked about it as a gimmick. They since tried to walk back those comments. If you want to read those, you can definitely go find it. But it's kind of that feels like a very much PR move to kind of save your skin from the comments that you made. So Sis, organizer of the Next Generation, which is I'll just read directly from their website statement. Next Generation Project is an organization dedicated to distributing resources to Black and Brown trans folks in need. Through donations and crowdfunding campaigns, they raise money to provide trans people with access to self-care and mental health services to flourish the mind, body, and spirit. We believe by helping alleviate financial burdens today, we can assist in shaping a future where the next generation of trans folks will have leaders and elders to guide them. So That's a little bit about the organization. That's who came out and organized a march on Broadway with different transgender performers coming to support that. And while it may have been sparked by Cameron McIntosh, they got to talk about different issues just in being cast, along with other cisgendered performers that take roles like take Tootsie on Broadway or Mrs. Doubtfire on Broadway, or even like when you think about film context, their film context is like that as well, where is it funny seeing Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman doing that in the movie? Yes, but it's still taking from an opportunity that a trans person could have to either take that role, or it's playing off of trans stereotypes, which would be the negative in that context. It's like really could rework this and do this in a better way instead of having a cis person do that. So those are the things that got brought to the forefront from the march, and just want to highlight that. So again, it started off as a Broadway comment, but it definitely applies into our sphere as well, because we see that happen in TV and movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Real quick, I'm gonna double check on our guest. Just see. Hi.
Oh my god, hello.
Hello. So we haven't started
Partners
Matrix.
in the background because dinner. It's fine.
It's fine. But I wanted to ask, so we're going to do a conversation on Dune right before we do the Matrix, and I thought you might be able to get some comments on that.
I have not very much to say, unfortunately, because I still haven't read the book, and I'm mostly approaching this as, it's a Denis Villeneuve film, so obviously already has some things going for it, but that's the only angle I could talk about it from.
Yeah. We'll just stay with us on here, and then we'll
it's all good.
Get a photo up. So yeah, Denis Villeneuve. Basically, the internet, as more and more of Dune has come out, it's not surprising. They've been worried about. They've been worried about white saviorism with Dune, and Danny decided to comment on it. I'll read his statement before I weighed in on it, saying that it's a very important question, and that's why I thought that Dune is, when the way I'm reading it, relevant. It's a critique of that. It's not a celebration of a savior. It's a criticism of the idea of a savior, of someone that will come and tell another population how to be, what to believe. It's not a condemnation, but a criticism. So that's the way I feel it's relevant, and that can be seen as contemporary. And that's what I'd say about that. Frankly, it's the opposite.
Good luck with that. Like, you would have to really change some things. That, or maybe the second half with it being centered around Chani might be the criticism that he's talking about.
Yeah, because he's talked about what he wants to do in part 2. So if he's referring to like the first movie is, and that's might be where it's like the first half. Yeah, it's definitely white saviorism trope. I'm sorry, it just is. Like, unless you were going to cast, now one way you could fix it is cast House Atreides differently, but then you still get into
it's still colonialism in a lot of ways.
Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't absolve the movie of the colonialism problem. So yeah, you could fix the race. You could fix the race, but you would still have a colonial backing to it.
Whether it's England or Wakanda, it's somebody who's more advanced-ish coming to teach other people how to do things.
Yeah. Now, I have not been able to read. I'm going to reread before the movie comes out. So I'm also like, I'm just so to his point. I think I can agree with him that the book isn't a condemnation on those ideas though, because I think I remember if it did that. So I guess my contention is like, I don't know if it really critiques that. He might be right that it's not celebrating it from the rooftops, but I don't know that it was a strong critique on it.
Yeah, I mean,
I went to another level.
It makes a lot of references to like how they're playing a role in it. Especially in the beginning parts, leading up to when he, really takes control. yeah, I don't know if it's a condemnation. It's more just a, hey, we're getting away with this by fooling these superstitious people and fulfilling their prophecies.
Yeah.
And then, whoops, I actually fulfilled the prophecy. I guess I am Neo.
If I didn't have another comment, that would have been a perfect transition, though. It's a nice. I feel like you were trying to lob me, but dang it, I have one. So yeah, last thing we can say on it, and then we'll move on to the Matrix, and then the main attraction for the night, the movie that has conquered the weekend. But yeah, I think we can keep a pin on this, and then as we get ready to do, like, because we're gonna rewatch the David Lynch version, the miniseries before we lead up to the Vinny the Wave release. So we can keep that on our minds when we rewatch those to see if even the movies did it, and then I'll try to keep in mind on that when I reread it as well.
So when we review the David Lynch one, can we just do it all in whisper?
Sure.
The movie about spice was very inspiring. I'm not sure about the set designs.
Hey, I appreciate they went for it though.
Yes, they did. What it was, I'm not 100% sure, but yes.
I will never, that movie's got its problems, but I will never fault it for. But you went out for it and you tried. There's so many movies that try to play it safe nowadays that sometimes going back and rewatching that dumpster fire is still like a, man, look at the man, they were trying.
They made choices. Man, bold choices.
Cool. All right. So I have been teasing what I would do when the trailer for The Matrix comes out. I've been joking repeatedly that, like, leave me alone. Don't talk to me that day. I will be watching it on repeat. And like me and Tom have teased early on the show and on previous episodes that I hate teasers of teaser trailers. And yet today, I have to admit, Lana Wachowski, you got me. You got me.
6:27, which may or may not actually be the time.
Oh, you got me, because I got to update that the site had been Matrix updated its profile photo on social media. Click on it to go through the website. You can pick the choices to see either Yahya Abdul Mateen or Neil Patrick Harris, depending on if you pick red or blue pill, giving you a monologue about what you think that you're thinking right now, what time that you think it is. It's not actually true, or it is the truth. And like Tom said about 6:27, if you use the site, you will get it will pull your local time, pull your exact time digitally, and repeat that back to you, giving it a little air of that old Matrix marketing feel to it as well. I'm wrecked, Tom.
Are you beside yourself?
I can't handle it.
No?
I can't handle it.
Should we like give you a Valium for a couple of days?
Yeah, do we need to sedate you until the actual trailer comes out on Thursday?
Honestly,
this is a service you might be able to provide.
I wish I could just go to sleep until Thursday.
Should we just send you like an emotional support burrito?
Or emotional support pizza, or both?
Both.
Both.
Why choose?
There's a part of me that is experiencing this marketing lead up to the fourth film, and I regret that I wasn't quite old enough when the first movie came out to have experienced the marketing then, because it was so new compared to, I think, if I remember correctly, the first Matrix film was the very first one to ever really, or one of the few to use an online website as a way to market the film, like, because the internet was so new for a lot of households. And obviously today our online ecosystem is much, much different than it was then. And so it's a little bit hard to get the same kind of experience, but I do appreciate that they're alluding back to those early days. I'm hoping that loop backwards takes us to an interesting place.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Gosh. I have no idea what's going on. Like, I read the descriptions of the trailer. yes, I've read the descriptions. They still were just as confused as we are looking at these little snippets. Um, yeah.
There's a part of me that wants to not see anything until I go see the movie in December. There's a part of me that really wants to do that because I kind of think I want to go in with as few preconceived notions as possible, because that's how I saw the first three films. So
Yeah,
question.
I'm much like Dune. I don't know if I want to hear much about it.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair. I just going back to that old Matrix website. I mean, I'm the kid that. Um, so I do wish. So when people talk about, I hate being in theater audiences and having that experience. I can also understand that if you're in a bad audience experience, but because of how old I was when the first Matrix came out, I couldn't watch it in the theater, or at least not that opening. Not that opening weekend. My dad did eventually take me to go see it in the theater, but just didn't get to have that opening night experience. And you talk about the online build up to that, and every story I hear out of that is insane. Like, as people talk about, like I've never talked to strangers after theater, or sorry, after a movie screening, but I did that day because there's so much to try to unpack. You got people oohing and awing at the same time.
Yeah, but people walking out trying to run on the walls and falling on their ass when they do so. Yeah, that was. I think I saw that at a midnight release too, which was just insane.
Yeah. So then, when the what was it, first trailer came out for the two movies, for Reloaded and Revolutions, my little child brain blew up because they said, "Oh, both of these are coming out in 2003." I'm like, what? Now, ultimately, there were problems with those two, which we'll address. I still love them quite a bit, but I admit, yeah, I know they got issues. There's things that didn't quite gel in those. But going back to the marketing, yeah, they have really known what they're doing, and they got me. I'm probably, my bias is just going to show, and I might have to add a little text box to anything when we talk Matrix and just be like, this will be biased, and just.
I cannot be objective. Please do not hold me to that standard in this single instance, please.
All right. Cool. I think that's all we've got for the Matrix, unless I'll let people go around if we have any last thoughts.
No, not at this time. It's a heck of a save the date, though.
Yes.
A save the date. No, it's a warning that a save the date is coming. This is the engagement announcement.
Yep.
Yeah. So, a reminder, folks, the Matrix Resurrections trailer is supposed to drop on Thursday, and I would assume it will be on the site first, and probably not on YouTube, assuming they probably want to get people to focus on the site. It also took a while for anyone to be able to rip a video to YouTube for a bit. So, first couple times I had to keep picking up hill and watching the versions there, but there are ones there. If you've not tried it, though, definitely recommend trying to go to the site first before you do the watching on YouTube, just so you can see the effect that happens with the time. It's a nice touch. Cool. But like Tom said, Tom is not seeing Shang-Chi, so yes. Tom's gonna pop out.
Yes. A lesson to everybody: manage your own spoilers.
Yes. Alert for everyone coming up on the next segment. And we are going to get into spoilers and the Shang-Chi. We'll talk the post-credit scenes, everything happening there, confirm things that happened in the movie. So this is your warning that the next segment's going to conclude that. But
I'm signing off.
All right. See you next
Have
week, Tom.
Night. Yep.
Bye. Darren's like, bring on the spoilers for me.
Let's go.
Let's see. Cool. So, actually, I just want to, we always kind of like to open the floor up for just impressions. So, you don't have to you can start to kind of like tee up things you might be really interested in, but just overall impressions from the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Overall, I would say again, this might also need another sort of asterisk on most of my statements, which is that I don't know that this is a movie I can really be objective about, in the sense of like it was a little too personal and close to the heart for me to be like objective. Well, no, I could still do that objective piece if we really came down to it, but frankly, that's not the reason why I'm here. So just add that little preface
You're
first.
totally good.
I thought it, in many respects, it was very, very well done. Obviously, it is still a Marvel, it's still an MCU film, so a lot of those sort of comedic touches are there, and I don't the movie doesn't suffer from them. I don't think they overindulge in those, and overall I thought the heart of the film, which is, you know, this broken little family across many continents and time zones, is solid. The story there is really lovely, I think, in a lot of ways, and it made the fluffier pieces of the film, I think, arguably funnier in contrast, and more lighthearted, because of how serious, you know, the story really is in some ways. So I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I need to finish my review, but that's the family aspect stood out to me 100%. And I love, was it Michelle Yeoh's comment? And it was said in the trailer. It's a really good line in the trailer, but it comes up again in the movie when she's talking to Shang, and it's like, you are the product of everything that's come before you. All your past generations, you are your mother, and whether you like it or not, you're your father too. And you see that play out in like how he, you see it on the way he's fighting in the first half of the movie when he confronts his father again, actually has a like engages with him, and how his fighting looks towards the end. Like those, I love when you see a visual component to someone's growth and actively changes how they're engaging in the space that they're in. Like that's just
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So it's not just words for words' sake. It's like she's giving really.
They're
direct
showing too, and not just telling, which is, I would say, in some cases, definitely a strength of this film, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So I overall really, I know I kind of launched into there, but yeah, overall really, really liked it. There's one MCU element that gets on my nerves,
Okay.
but it's not really, so I have to separate it out. It's like, again, it doesn't really affect the movie. I just am like, why is this here?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be something that Kevin Feige's like, we'll use this piece, and maybe Destin Daniels didn't want to actually use it and is just required to, because it is, again, that might be a Marvel trapping, and he's like, fine, we'll use it. So granted, it's I'll put it as a minor gripe, but and again, spoiler alert for folks that Ben Kingsley comes back.
Trevor.
It's Trevor Slattery.
Yep.
And if it had just been a cameo, I think that would have been a nice touch. Like, oh yeah, because that does get confirmed in like the after shot for Iron Man 3 of him being like the Mandarin, like, nah, you messed my name up. We gotta take care of that. It's like, cool. But then I felt like he kind of overstays his welcome just a little bit. So
yeah. I don't think I would disagree with that. I mean, there was, you know, there's some of those like kind of funnier moments during the kind of third act of the film. Honestly, I don't think the film would lose on a ton if you edited those out, frankly. And that might say something a little bit about, you know, how much a character did. But we needed sort of this magic MacGuffin to do some exposition in the second act, and they decided Trevor and his little furry friend was the right choice, apparently. And it did a fine enough job.
Yeah. And then I'll get my last gripe out so we can just talk about the good stuff, because really it's small, and this is just a thing that and I don't know what's going on at Marvel when I don't mean first time directors, but first time Marvel directors, is that there seems to be like a CGI thing that happens. So fight choreography in this movie,
gorgeous.
Well, I know we're going to get into that in a bit.
Sure.
But the forest scene in particular, and it maybe reminded me of like T'Challa and Killmonger on the bridge and Black Panther fighting. It's like there's some moments that look really good, and there's some moments that look like it got shot back to two. Yeah. And again, the the reach of the director in that can be limited if it's your first time through that, having worked with CGI crews before, which for Ryan Coogler, that also would have been his first time in Black Panther. And then for Destin Daniels, it also would have been his first time as well in Marvel. So it's like that might be, and I've seen this pop up with the new directors. I'm hoping like Nia DaCosta, when she does the Marvels, doesn't run into that. But so again, it's not really even a Shang-Chi criticism. It's just more of like a
A
Marvel.
question about how Marvel runs. I had heard
Yeah.
rumors that Shang-Chi had a relatively smaller budget compared to some of the other Marvel films that have come out in recent years. Um, don't pretend to understand how those sorts of cost sheets are created, but I don't doubt, Kenny, your point about certain quote unquote requirements of Marvel films that the filmmakers may not have much of a choice over.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but those are it. Those are the two. Like, and that's all. Like, and they're again, they're small. So let's get into where do you want to tackle first?
Oh my God, there's so many things about this film we could talk about. The primary areas a lot of my thoughts I think focus was number one, of course, the storytelling, the writing. Number two, the visuals of the storytelling, so the visual aspect of that storytelling, and then number three, the sort of meta experience of being a Chinese American person watching this film in 2021, a year and a half into a global pandemic that originated in my country of birth. I think there's a lot of questions there in that kind of latter
Yeah.
piece that could be really interesting. But yeah, so the storytelling piece, of course, I think is of course always the kind of biggest thing I tend to look at in Marvel films, anyways, because at the end of the day, I'm the kind of viewer who cares about stories, right? Um, and I the one that I think that they chose. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. The filmmakers and the writers had a lot to do for Shang-Chi to bring it into kind of, I think, the modern cultural landscape. I have not read the comics, largely on advice from friends who have indicated to me that it can be a somewhat traumatizing experience if you're a person of Asian descent trying to read this stuff, because unfortunately it's the 70s. Everyone's trying to cop Bruce Lee, but really using really, really racist stereotypes. I mean, the character's father's name is originally Fu Manchu. Like, what can you say about that? You know,
Yeah.
so the filmmakers had a lot to do to sort of excise those demons, as it were, from the story.
I would say if you do want to read Agents of Atlas, like with Jimmy Woo and the rest of the other like Inhumans and other folks he pulls into his crew there, I feel like that has been a better run
Mm.
uh, involving Shang-Chi. But yeah, yes,
Yes, yeah, and
totally
I mean,
validating what
regardless,
you're
I am
saying.
happy to hear, but that there's been an evolution of the character in the interim, even between the release of this film and the character's introduction in the 70s. I think that tells us, even that little piece of it tells us a little bit something about the way that perceptions of Asian characters and Asian American characters have changed over the years. So from a storytelling perspective, I thought Shang-Chi, told a relatively simple story, right? We have this interesting little family. The mother and the father come from two very, very different worlds. Maybe they were never intended to meet and fall in love and have a family, but nonetheless, they each leave behind their respective past lives and live this very idyllic few years of happiness together before they're torn apart again, when their past kind of catches up to them. And then the second piece, of course, is the sort of this notion of an inversion, really, of the return of the prodigal son, right? And in this case, rather than him being coming back of his own volition after some great trial or journey, instead the story starts with him being forcefully brought home by a father who he has resented and wondered about for a lot of his life since he left. But with this extra weight of knowing these things about his father that make him kind of a supervillain in some ways, an unconventional one nonetheless, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah,
But he is nonetheless kind of forcefully dragged back home and has to confront this, also his own past he's been trying to run from. So from that perspective, the story's not complicated, it's not sprawling or large the way we see other Marvel movies can be at times. It's quite contained as a story, but that is not a bad thing. I think it largely works in service of the development of all of the characters in meaningful ways. I think the only maybe kind of drawback I feel there is, I feel like the sister and the mother didn't get quite as much development as they could have. You can make the argument that both of them were there to help the main character come to his own self-actualization at the end of the film. Do I think that Marvel is in general conscious about that kind of stuff? No, not particularly, not without being forced to, I think, which they finally came around on with, Black Widow and other films kind of closer to that lane. But in this way, I think they're not going to quite shed the sort of chauvinism, shall we say, about the development of the main character. But that's a qualm that's neither here nor there, in face of the other things in the story, I think.
Yeah, and I do feel like it's, if they can expand it out in a, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp has its problems, but one thing I could not say is that Evangeline Lilly doesn't have, like, it's like maybe the first one is more focused on Scott. The second one I feel like gets pretty balanced between the two of them.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I would like to see his sister get that more of that kind of treatment in their second movie.
Yeah, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
do think
Which, I
she's
mean,
set up. Yeah.
the stinger certainly hints at some sort of development for her, which I really, just to bounce super quickly to that second stinger scene, I really appreciated that they were a bit ambiguous about what she was doing. After I left the
Yeah.
theater with the friends who I went to go see this film with, a lot of the folks seemed to have differing opinions about what was happening. One person basically said, "Oh man, no, I didn't want them to turn her bad in the end." And I was like, "How are we sure that she is turning bad? We don't know that just from that roughly 20 or 30-second clip, of her, sitting down and with a very self-satisfied look, looking upon, her father's compound, and we see both men and women training in the courtyard, et cetera, et cetera. It could hint at anything, honestly, and I'm excited by that possibility, honestly.
Maybe she'll take down Sharon Carter and her nonsense in Madripoor. I'd be,
Yeah,
because
we definitely have some options available to us for sure. But yeah, the storytelling, I think, is very deep in a lot of ways, and helped on, I must say, in part by the casting. I mean, Tony Leung in general, I think, was a stroke of genius, honestly, for the Mandarin. And what a nuanced, complex actor here he is. Even just you get so much storytelling just from like looking at his eyes throughout the film, and really, I kept exclaiming to my friends about sort of the pathos on his face, especially in the latter part of the film when he is the character is under the illusion his wife is trapped behind this gate that the village of Talo is guarding, and that he must save her, and the guilt and grief that comes through that moment of him looking back and saying, "My wife is dead because of me," actually, and what he would not do to rectify that and to bring her home. I think for any of us, whether we come from, whole or broken families, that is a very, very real sensation, and thing that was very, very believable on screen. And those final moments, I think, between Shang-Chi and his father were really beautifully written in that way. I mean, subtle moments, looks, there's barely any dialogue. And I think that was a light touch on what was otherwise a very, very poignant kind of goodbye.
yeah, and there's like the subtle realization of what he had, of what he had done to his
Hmm.
wife. Maybe a stretch as far as like how far reaching that was, but definitely in that moment of like for his wife and for his children, in that moment, it's like I might have doomed you. It's like when he gives the rings over. I like that's again you yes, in screenwriting 101 and everybody in the theater, are you expecting him to get the rings by the end? Yes,
Of course.
of course.
Right.
But when you choose to do that, can have a lot of impact.
Yes.
And doing it
Yes.
at that moment, and which they do in the movie, was a really it's because he gives him a line that you're going to need to show me that you're strong enough to carry these,
Hmm.
and it doesn't end up really being his strength that's quote unquote saves him, right? It's
Hmm.
almost playing off his father's strength a lot, in that final fight when he finally gets the better of him, as well. So I feel like if he's finally relinquishing that, it says a lot about where his mental state as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, it has almost a little flavor of that sort of like in Return of the Jedi with sorry to use a somewhat stereotypical example maybe, but that final moment, right, when the kind of the epiphany arrives and the character makes a decision, because while I don't know that earlier in the film when Shang-Chi is talking with Katie about, you know I'm going to do what my father trained me to do. I'm going to kill him. The film tries to fake you out a little bit into thinking that he really might go through with it and that he will forcibly take the rings from his father. Listen, this is a Marvel film. This is a hero. We're not gonna actually go that route. Or they could have, and that could have introduced an entirely different element into the story and something else for the character to grapple with, maybe in the next film. But they ultimately chose not to do that. I think in favor, really, of continuing to humanize Tony Leung's character, Wenwu, to give him that final moment of release of saying, "Well, I may have failed my wife, but I'm not going to fail my son. I'm not going to fail my daughter." You know.
But I will say though, kind of going back to like how they just showed his fight changing for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
When he has a conversation with Katie, and the first fight with his father in Tao Lo, like I think he is trying. He fails because his dad gets the better of him because he hasn't really what his aunt has told him hasn't really sunk in yet. Like
No.
he hasn't put these things together of like
No.
who are you going to be?
And his anger and grief are in the forefront to that moment. I
Yeah,
absolutely agree. And I think especially once his father really provokes him enough and he really kind of explodes a little bit and that kind of restraint and the fear goes
like is this
away.
what you want? Is this what you want?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
It's kind of like it's the reaching the end of the rope, right? It's the reaching the end of the rope with this person who you have not known how to think about for a good half of your life now. And despite the fact that knowing what we know, of course, when Sean confesses that he did kill the man responsible for his mother's death, there is this. It almost hints at this strange sort of like karmic tie between him and his father. His father is the one who is the reason his mother's dead, and he is the one who avenged her death. Blood must be paid for a blood price. It's this strange connection between them that almost, in my opinion, leads him really killing his father out of rage and grief, and not because he
yeah,
actually really wanted to, but because
exactly.
when he finally let go and took out all of that on his father. If he had gone far enough, maybe the story could have been different. Yeah,
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 um, and I think that tells a lot about so if we I guess I don't even want to necessarily. This is not necessarily. I'm not going like Joseph Campbell hero
yeah.
story or even Marvel's version of hero story, but those
Sure.
just some basic tenets of uh, hero gets the call to action
Mm-hmm.
and then has a sacrifice to gain a piece of power that will um, let them win the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I guess technically that happens in this movie, but a lot of these things have been shuffled around, and that's where to your point about the storytelling, and we talked earlier about it being about the family, is that this is trying to resolve. It's like what are you going to do about the trauma from your past?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not so much about him becoming a hero in that sense of like that may be what he gets pulled into. Like he might get that pull later in
Yeah.
like in the next Avengers or in his
Right.
sequel, like when you
Right.
start going to his villains. But
But this story here is really about repairing that rift in his family and at the heart of his family, right? But also the whole notion of like you can't heal when you're actively rejecting half of yourself, and I think some of that is also about resolving his feelings towards his father because that grief and that pain is also representative of that parts of himself that are like his father, the one that trained to be the assassin and killed a man, et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately him being able to work through that, um, with his sister and his father both in a lot of ways.
and I kind of wonder if he thought there would be, even if he believed in what his father said about paying for blood and blood. I wonder if he thought maybe there'd be some satisfaction or some catharsis by killing that man, and then when that didn't happen, that
Mm,
also helped that catalyst of like I have to leave.
yeah,
I gotta
absolutely. You know, yeah. I mean, it's obviously we don't get quite that much of a look into the character's interiority in that respect. We don't like because a lot of what we can glean about the younger years of both Shang-Chi and Xiaoling hints at kind of isolation and loneliness, right? That's the kind of broad strokes of what we can get, especially after their mother dies.
right.
And then, Shang-Chi's purpose then becomes I must avenge my mother. And so I can imagine that there's a sort of emptiness that comes after fulfilling that, because depending on how you want to look at the world, from a moral standpoint about revenge killing, there is the kind of question about honor, and about fulfilling this debt, or making up for this, versus the no matter what you do to try and right a wrong with another wrong, there is no satisfaction then ultimately, because you sacrifice some part of yourself to do that. And maybe if we want to talk about sacrifices to gain something in this case, then it is really Sean coming to some understanding of what it meant then that he maybe lost a piece of himself in that killing of that man who was responsible for his mother's death, and realizing, well, that didn't bring her back, and that didn't satisfy my father in the end of the day. And he tried to run from it. He ran from it for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Damn, dude.
As I was writing my review, I'm not trying to compare this to Black Panther in the sense of
I think that comparison is a little hard to avoid, if only by the barest thread that those two films are some of what we might consider the vanguard of a different kind of perspective in the MCU. And even that I have to heavily caveat, because this is Disney, this is the MCU.
Right.
I'm not going to expect them to do the kind of work that a movie like Moonlight or The Farewell is going to do when it comes to exploring these experiences. But they know a market opportunity when they see one, and representation is still representation, even in this capitalist system we live in. Anyways, please continue.
Yeah. So that's a perfect caveat to everything I was about to say. But there's castings to me can speak a lot, even if when I think about Michelle Yeoh's comment, I feel like that reaches past the moment in the movie to also folks that are watching, because. And the reason I want to bring up Black Panther is like when Killmonger jokes to Angela Bassett as the queen of like, "Hey, Auntie."
Oh my God! Yes.
I was thinking about Michelle Yeoh's like, "Oh, you're literally you are the auntie in a lot of ways, not just in this film, but for like international cinema as a whole, and what your impact has been on that." So I was like, yes. I'm gonna connect these two, and I think that's appropriate.
I think so too. I think, and especially when we consider the kind of the relative stature of actors like Angela Bassett and Michelle Yeoh and the impact they've had on the industry, it does feel very, very appropriate in a lot of ways. Obviously the characters themselves are different, but I think they kind of give us a similar function, which is the anchor to the family even after the passing of a loved one. And obviously in the prior case, T'Challa's father, and in this case, Shang-Chi and Xiaoling's mother. But nonetheless, these mother like aunt figures who nonetheless still anchor us to that foundation still, and it's well done. It's well done, definitely. If you want to talk a little bit more about some of the visuals of this film, oh my god, especially this movie is gorgeous. Minus those weird CG moments, this was a gorgeous film, and I loved all the little touches, especially in some of the design and the choreography that kind of alluded to. I mean, some of the films that these incredible actors like Tony Leung and Michelle Yeoh have been in the past, those like really highly stylized wushu films. It was lovely to get some of those hints here, because that is outside of very kind of niche audiences. I think those kinds of films haven't gotten a ton of exposure in America, so to give people a little taste of that, and maybe hopefully they'll seek those things out afterwards, is a deep hope of mine here.
So cinematography wise, Bill Pope was the cinematographer for this film. That's significant because he's had some superhero work before Sam Raimi and Spider-Man, but might have done a movie we were already talking about today, like The Matrix.
Yes, indeed.
Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions.
Yep.
So it's I immediately like with the the bus sequence. I was thinking a lot about the Spider-Man fight in Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock, and obviously combinations of like the choreo work that was happening that you'd see in a Matrix, and again with the Wushu movies, like
yes.
just
I
does a
think
really
I'm
good.
sure
Okay.
Bill Pope has some interesting memories from shooting the Matrix films, given that was a Hong Kong stunt team who worked on those films and did a lot and Wu Ping of course did the choreography. So I'm sure it felt a little familiar at least. Yeah, and what a lovely job he did. I'm sure the criticism you've heard comparing kind of martial arts films or action films really that have any sort of fighting in it made in Hollywood compared to the ones in Hong Kong or Taiwan or even mainland China is the way that they get cut sometimes, because a lot of times the editing in American action films that have fighting sequences often have many cuts, very quick cuts, because
They're
they're trying to cut edges a little bit on actual impact and contact between actors or stunt people. Understandably so, given the rather stricter rules around stunt work in the Hollywood portion of the industry, of course. But it does have the unfortunate carry-on effect of not really giving you much of a sense of the action because of the quick
yeah.
cutting and the lack of, seeing the impacts. And while Shang-Chi did still have more cuts in it than you might see in a traditional kind of Hollywood martial arts film, I did appreciate that the editing was still somewhat restrained in the fighting
Yes.
scenes, where they give each segment of the action at least a few seconds to breathe a little bit for you to see the actual action before cutting to a different angle or cutting away to a different impact, and I
Yeah.
appreciate they tried at least a little bit there.
In all three phases, the choreo team, cinematographer, and the editors have to understand
Mhm.
how those work
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
So more times than not, they understood that in this film. I was gonna say there's only one spot. Actually, so really, unfortunately, kind of goes to the CGI again. But when it's mainly a fight, when it's human characters fighting each other,
Mhm.
I really don't see any editing problems there.
Yep.
The only time it's like the final fight when I even forgot what the name monster what the monster
Dweller
when
in Darkness.
yeah, there you go, thank you. When it comes through the gate, there are some shots there that just don't.
Very super quick, but I suspect they may have had other reasons to have done that, cutting that quickly, because they probably was using CGI pretty heavily even on the actors.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
unfortunately, despite how far CGI has come, we're still not quite at the point where where any human actors that have been CGI'd aren't hitting uncanny valley in some subtle way, you
yeah.
know.
So I think that's just
Also,
where.
quick interesting aside, I mentioned Moonlight earlier. How funny is this? I just double checked. Nate Sanders, who in fact was the editor for Moonlight, also edited Shang-Chi. How about that? That is incredibly
That's real.
interesting.
That's perfect.
That is really perfect. And I had a funny story. I didn't even know that, folks, before I mentioned Moonlight earlier. So love when those funny little connections happen.
But yeah, the stand. There were a lot of great fights, but the standout for me, surprisingly, was um, when Shang Chi is fighting his trainer in the unfinished building.
Oh
And it's
yes.
mainly because of the lighting.
Oh,
Like
the
and the
lighting was gorgeous. That
like
reminded me a little bit of some the way that some fight scenes have been shot in the Bond films. Actually, I remember particularly from the newer
yeah,
era, that
Skyfall.
kind of, yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that fight in Skyfall where they're in Macau, of course. So it's really funny how well that lines up. But yeah, no, I think you and I are thinking of the same fight sequence where Bond is in this high rise. He's kind of backlit with neon, and it's just silhouettes, and it's gorgeous, honestly. Like, maybe it's
yeah,
a little staid these days for action films now, but at the time I was like, that what a beautifully composed shot. It was awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many good spots like that. When the
Hmm.
Matt Tatalo comes out from the water,
Oh,
'cause I
yeah,
was
that
about,
was beautiful. The water CG in this film was honestly really well done, I have to say. Like, I think they'd accepted that, like, this is not water that's trying to look like water. This is absolutely magical water. We might as well lean into that a little bit more. And I think it was better for it,
and it
honestly.
helps.
It helps. They didn't
Yeah,
try to be anything that they're not, honestly.
yeah,
And I think that's what really it makes CGI convincing in those settings for sure. Yeah. The last thing I just wanted to briefly comment on was just sort of the meta experience of kind of watching this film as a Chinese American person. And it's funny because I had a friend make a comment after seeing the film, a white friend, make a comment after seeing the film saying, oh, the filmmakers made a very unapologetically Chinese film. And after seeing it, I'm not sure I totally agree with that simply because I feel like the film was much more distinctly Chinese American, actually, or just really Chinese diaspora, if you will. Because given if we think about kind of the places that, Shang-Chi and Xiaoling end up, it is about the Chinese diaspora. It's San Francisco and Macau, two parts of the world that have major Chinese populations. The West Coast being where Chinese immigrants landed in the late 19th century to work on the railroads. Macau, which has a significant, Chinese population, et cetera, et cetera. And again, going back to the way the story is written about these two children returning, to their family, returning home, hit very deep because I think that is the immigrant story, especially, like for someone like me who very similar to the way the character's written, I moved from China to the United States when I was 6 years old. I've really grown up here, absorbed a lot of culture here, but nonetheless, I feel still this draw, this call to go home. And this notion of trying to find that balance and kind of perfect melding of your two selves inside, and it's very imperfect. I think the film suggests that at various points, in an interesting sort of way. I loved one of the opening scenes when Sean and Katie are at her family's home eating breakfast before they go to work, and Sean is talking to White Po in English, and she's responding in Chinese. And I thought, oh my God, that is literally the way my family and I talk to each other. Is I'm speaking in English mixed with Chinese. My parents are speaking in Chinese back to me primarily, but the mutual comprehension is totally fine. And it was so lovely to get to see that on screen in a movie that's part of the MCU. Like, so many people are going to see this film, and I'm like, yeah, that's what my family kind of looks like. And that's really, really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need those cultural touchstones.
We need those cultural touchstones. In part because we're a bigger chunk of this country than a lot of people think. I think so Chinese and Chinese Americans make up something like, I think there's over 5 million of us in the country. Clustered in areas, obviously, but there are many, many of us actually, and it's nice for more of our stories and perspectives to make it out there for sure, especially given the state of the world right now.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get into that too much tonight because it's a bit of a downer. But just it's important for people to be able to see those things right now.
Yeah, and positive representation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly.
There's been a lot of negative narratives in the news that have been floated to the top, and I'm like, at a time where folks have been attacked for their heritage, like, yeah.
And I'm sure Kenny will absolutely understand what I mean by this, which is, it doesn't always have to be about us dying or suffering. You know what I mean?
We get. It's like when I'm teaching blues, people are like, how is it being a black person in America? Like, that's a loaded question.
That's a loaded question.
But generally, I'm not like screaming for Moses to come deliver me at every single point of the day. Like,
yes.
And I don't need so to my movies, like, I don't need my movies to be all Amistad and Roots.
And 12 Years a Slave, like that doesn't, our pain is not the only thing that defines us, no matter what the white folks think.
So this is, and I guess one last thing I'll add in is that I think the way they focus the story helps it avoid. So we talk about some of the freshman CGI issues, but there can also just be some origin story issues. But the story here really helps. Like, I think about, like, what origin movie am I going to want to rewatch more often than not?
I'm going to go back and rewatch this in like the next couple of weeks because I know there is stuff I missed, and I'm really excited to kind of look for those background details.
Yeah, and those are the things that's, I think, what's going to make this stand the test of time for Marvel movies a lot better. Because again, there is the Marvel paint, like, it is what it is. But I think generally it's going to stand that test a lot better than, like. Because again, I like First Avenger, but I watch Winter Soldier more than I would watch First Avenger. I think Iron Man as an origin still stays pretty well. The first four,
It's starting to age a little bit. It's showing its age. Phase 1's definitely showing its age in some ways, for sure.
I mean, we called out Doctor Strange for how bad it was when it came out because it's like, oh, so magical Tony Stark, and then y'all had the audacity to have them have a pissing match in Infinity War, like we weren't going to notice. These characters feel very similar.
Yeah.
You know, so when that's the crop to work with, I think it's going to shoot past that so easily, and then we can have conversations about where's this. Like, I don't want to do that now because everyone always tries to do stuff too quickly.
They try.
I'm like, just hold on a second and let's see. You know, but rewatchability, I think, is going to be out of the charts.
Very high, very high, very high. It's a very entertaining movie in a lot of respects, honestly.
And I get okay, real quick. When he's talking about his father on the plane and they get interrupted.
Oh my god!
It wasn't just that it was funny. I'm like, oh my gosh, we would be in we'd be in that flashback right now, and like, what a way to like pull out of it, get a laugh, and then you let the characters have to like finish having that conversation and sit in that awkwardness. I just it's so good. Because you would really, someone else would be, that would have continued for like a couple minutes or something, show them finishing that flashback, and they just like, no.
Nope. Ooh, one last thing I do want to say about kind of the experience of watching the film, and I'm going to give this piece of advice to the folks who hopefully can take advantage of it. These subtitles, they do an okay job, I would say, of giving you the gist of what the character on screen has said. But if you have a friend who speaks Chinese well enough to be able to understand what the act, which, by the way, it's interestingly enough, sorry, second sidetrack, the Chinese part of the cast actually split somewhat evenly between native Mandarin speakers and native Cantonese speakers. You actually tell that just a little bit of their dialogue, which I personally find very interesting. But so if you have a friend who speaks Chinese and understands it, I would recommend going with them and having them talk a little bit about some of the nuances of some of the lines, because the translations and the subtitles don't really fully capture those. Which I am not going to lie, though, as a native Chinese speaker, it did make me feel like I was a little in on something in the theater that other people weren't, and that was a little cool. Not going to lie. So yeah, that's my last bit.
But do you remember when Trevor Noah was talking about watching Black Panther?
Oh yes,
because he had done he's the computer voice in the
right.
But he's talking about when he's watching and he's like the subtitles for Nosha, and he's like, no, I don't need the subtitles. I know what they're saying. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, it's me.
Yep.
Pop.
Yeah.
All right, my last Black Panther connection, but yeah. And the other part of the reason I brought that one scene up, though, is it's these last two Marvel movies, Black Widow and Shang-Chi, there's comedy, but Marvel usually is really bad about cutting dramatic tension with comedy.
Definitely. They've definitely overused it without question in some of their past films.
And it's interesting that these two like, they have their funny moments, and I guess even, you know what, maybe when I go rewatch it, even what I said with Trevor Slattery, if he's kind of pulled more of that so that it's not in the rest of the movie, maybe that's why it hit me. Maybe that's why it hit me different, because it was more on him than it was the rest of the film. So maybe when I go back and rewatch it, I might like it more, because I'm like, he's serving that function of the relief, kind of taking it a little bit off of, because Awkwafina has some of the relief a bit, but I'm glad they didn't make her like, you're the comic relief. Like,
yes, I am glad of that as well. They definitely could have, like, I appreciate that the humor that came from the Chinese characters was more sardonic than outright comedic, which I think makes sense for those characters a lot as well. Now, and this is not to say that the kind of humor that Marvel likes, it doesn't feature in Chinese culture. That, I mean, if anyone's ever watched Chinese stand-up, shit is fucking hilarious, just from a wordplay standpoint, which that is impossible to translate. So I'm sorry, I can't help you there. But
Okay.
I appreciated that the humor that they did put into the story for those characters was still restrained enough to make sense for their characters. I think they could have very far too easily gotten into a really, really problematic place if they had been less careful about how they edited that comedy piece, for sure.
Very true.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, Marvel has a bona fide hit on their hands. Be very curious to see how the legs on this does in the box office. But it's recouped its budget, so anything it'll be gravy after this, so they're gonna be fine. Yeah. So hopefully that's a good sign for cinemas. So if you are gonna go see it, folks, I know some people have to be careful how they go to the theater and different things. So, like, as we always say in the show, like, we want you to go watch movies as careful as you can these days with everything going on. So usually my recommendation is if you can go during the week, I know you might be busy during the week, but it's probably your best bet for minimal audience interaction. Because, like, especially if you can catch a matinee during the week, there'll be less people there. You might be able to catch a theater to yourself, or very sparsed out. And then check in with your local indie theaters. A lot of them were doing checkerboard seating already since the start of the pandemic, or when things started to open back up. And a lot of them have maintained that and didn't just open it all back up. And especially I've kind of refocused on that as things have started back up. So, like, there's not a knock on, I guess it is a knock on Regal and AMC. It's like, but a lot of them kind of, you might be able to sign your seat, but a lot of them kind of didn't put the checkerboards back into their systems. So just call your local theater, see what their precautions are and what they're doing. But yeah, if you can go during the week, that's probably good. If you do have to go on a weekend, probably early in the day or the latest showing that you can, probably can guarantee that you'll see less people. But definitely, if you've not seen it, you need to go see it. And if you didn't watch tonight, if you're watching this later, definitely let us know what you think. Throw it in the comments. We're glad to have a really great conversation with you.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. I was itching to talk about this movie, dying to talk about this movie. So thank you for the opportunity, Kenny. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Y'all know you're always welcome to come back and jump on the feed
Nice.
whenever you like.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's good. But yeah, that is it. Going to be it for the Commander Shipp and Major Tom show, folks. As always, if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, you can subscribe there, like this video. That always helps us out so that you can know when the next video is going to drop. And what we have coming up later in the week, the Quorum. That is our weekly TV watch. It's every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central from 7 to 9. We are doing What If Episode 5, along with the first 2 episodes of Agent Carter Season 2. So we just wrapped up Season 1 of Agent Carter. We'll be doing Agent Carter Season 2, starting the first 2 episodes of that. After that, on Thursday night, so it's a doubleheader, we'll be doing Red Shirt Rejects. And our movie this week is Star Trek Nemesis. Oh, gosh.
Oh, God. Good luck, folks. That's all I got to say.
It's going to be, I mean, the episode will probably be hilarious, but.
You know that film is the reason that drove Tom Hardy to drugs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised in the slightest. And as we've talked, Matrix, at some point on Thursday, I will be on a stream if I'm either playing a game or something. I will talk about it in somehow, some way. It will happen on Thursday. I can't guarantee when because I don't know the time the trailer will drop. But yes, that will happen. And Taryn didn't do the rundown last week, but we should be back on for this week. So that's any news we didn't cover today, Monday, or throughout the rest of the week, or new nuggets drop. Taryn will definitely talk about that on the rundown on Friday. So yeah, this has been Commander Shipp, and we will see you all next time.
Good night, everyone.